Yes, your legs get worked when you're cycling and running, just like your core gets worked when you're doing a plank or your new workout for abs or whatever. But we have to look a little deeper into this because the fatigue of an area does not equate to quality of work in an area.
Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we are coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only improve your health, but also increase your longevity and improve your quality of life. And if you are looking for a way to exercise on your own time, at your own gym, while still receiving the same type of guidance that we give our clients here at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, then you need to check out our virtual membership program. This is exactly why we built the program, to be able to help clients remotely with exercise that is built for your body. So if you are looking for an alternative solution to finding workouts online, to looking at workouts in magazines, and you want something that's actually custom built for your body, head on over to matschaumburg.com, click on the membership tab, and schedule a consultation call with us to enroll and learn more about our virtual membership program. Now, today we are answering your questions that you send in, and we love this part of the month because we get to connect with more of our listeners and we get to answer things that you are really curious about. And this question got sent to us via email. And the question says, do I really have to do weight training for my legs if I cycle or run a lot? And this is something that we hear quite frequently. People will be like, oh yeah, I do my lifts for my upper body, I do some strengthening stuff for my core, and then for my legs, I run and I do biking. And that's good enough, right? And we want to address this directly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this idea stems from the idea that when we're at the gym, if a certain part of our body, or let me rephrase it, if we're at the gym or we're doing an activity like running, cycling, or doing something outside, something active, and a certain area of our body feels tired or worked at the end, that was quality work. And that was all we needed to do for it. For example, we hear this, with cycling and running. After you cycle and run, obviously your legs are going to be probably the most tired area of your body. And so it's understandable to think, oh, I just had a great leg workout. I've also heard this with things like, people will talk about like ab workouts, It's like, oh man, it was the best ab workout because at the end, my abs were shaking. I'm like, okay, so you felt them that they worked really hard. And that's almost always the way that we judge the quality of a stimulus in an area or a work in an area, is like, how tired is it or how worked does it feel at the end? And there are a lot of other characteristics and properties that we have to look at to be ensuring that not only is this area getting worked, because yes, stimulus matters, but also what kind of stimulus and how an area is being stimulated is also important to look at. So I understand the viewpoint. Yes, your legs get worked when you're cycling and running, just like your core gets worked when you're doing a plank or your new workout for abs or whatever. But we have to look a little deeper into this because the fatigue of an area does not equate to quality of work in an area.
Julie, that's a really good point. And so, we're going to break this down into two types of exercise, or two categories of exercise as we see it. And, normally you hear of categories of exercise like resistance training and cardio. And that's not what we're talking about today, okay? What we're talking about here are exercises that use your body versus exercise that builds or rebuilds your body. You might be sitting there thinking, well, look, any exercise is going to use my body. And that's true. All right, your body is always going to be used, but where the difference is if your body is being built while you're doing it, or is your body just being used?
Right, you're absolutely right, Charlie. And sometimes it almost goes back to what your intention is when you're exercising. A lot of times when we exercise, although what you brought up, Charlie, it is true. We're always using our body, right? Like if I'm going to get my knee muscles stronger, I have to use my body to get my knee muscles stronger. And also if I'm going to go running for 3 miles, I'm using my body to achieve those 3 miles. They're both could be qualified as use. But what we're talking about when we define this is what exercises are you doing to use your body to get something done versus to improve a quality of your own body, right? So here's an example. If you're running and the goal is to achieve 3 miles or whatever your distance, then you're using your body to get 3 miles done of jogging or cycling, whatever that is. On the other hand, sometimes we can exercise with the mindset of I'm going to use my body, I'm going to do stuff with my body, I'm going to move my body with the goal of improving the quality of my body, muscles, and joints. So you might be going to to go to the gym to exercise, and when we use weight training for this a lot because it beautifully matches this, but weight training can often be structured so that the end result, the end goal is to improve the quality of the muscles you're trying to work, to improve the quality of the joints that you're moving versus, again, I'm using my body to get 3 miles done. Or using your body can also be applied to the gym because you know those people that go to the gym and they're like, I just have to get 10 of these done, 20 of those done, 3 minutes on the bike. And, you know, again, that's using your body. So we have to start differentiating this idea of using our bodies versus exercise that builds or rebuilds our body. And yes, many exercises could fit into different categories, but the way that we execute these exercises is what makes a big difference.
And that's really the key, is how you're executing it and what your goal is during the exercise. Now, understanding this difference is huge. It's absolutely huge. It is totally vital to your longevity when it comes to exercise. And what I mean by that is, how many people do you know that say, well, yeah, you know, I used to play basketball on the weekends, but then my knees started to bug me too much. So I decided that, well, I can't play basketball anymore. Why don't I switch to doing swimming? And then I started swimming, but then my shoulders started to bother me too much. And so I decided, you know what, I can't do swimming anymore. So you know what, I need to switch to something else. And it's this chronic thing where they go from activity to activity to activity, and all those activities outside looking in could be classified as exercise, but each of those activities flares up their body in a brand new way, which means, is that exercise really building the health of their body, or is it just continuing to use the body until their body says, you know what, I can't do this anymore. The health in my knees or the health in my shoulders is so depleted that we have to stop. And so if we're talking about reaping the benefits of exercise from a health perspective, from a longevity perspective, well, then we need to make sure that we keep exercising for the long term. And this is how you do it right here, understanding this difference between exercise that uses your body and exercise that builds your body.
It's absolutely right, because exercise is something that all of us really cannot afford to retire from. And so a lot of times when we meet those people, or maybe this is you, or maybe you're one of those people that, like what Charlie was describing, it's like you do an activity, you go all into it, and then it's like, well, because of my age, i.e. you're probably having symptoms that don't feel good, I now have to switch to swimming, or I now have to switch to tennis, or whatever it is, right? And maybe it's not even the activity, because maybe the activity is just fine. You know, it's serving you well. You probably enjoy it, probably get your heart rate up. It's probably fun. It's something you return to. Maybe the problem actually is you're not putting enough rebuild time in. And that's what we see a whole bunch. And unfortunately, many of us don't even consider adding in rebuild time until you've gone past the point where you need to be rebuilding, meaning you're symptomatic already. You're already being taken away from the activities you enjoy. You're not feeling so hot. And the fortunate thing is that the body is this beautiful, adaptable thing. So a lot of times if we do have the opportunity to teach people how to build their body, build their muscles and joints, and maintain those, they are able to return to those activities that they do enjoy without getting that declaration of, oh, you can no longer do this activity. This is one of the most common things we get. Even one of our clients just this past week were like, yeah, I don't think I'll ever be able to ski again. Like, all right, just give us a couple weeks. We'll rebuild you up. You'll be just fine. Because you know what? And in the end, exercise is all about doing and being able to continue to do the things you enjoy in life. So really consider this rebuild phase that we're going to dive into and talk about coming up. But this is why it's so important that, yes, runners, yes, cyclers, yes, anyone doing an activity or a sport that's more of activity-based or more using-based needs to be doing these rebuilding exercises. And again, we're not saying that these rebuilding exercises are superior or better or, more advantageous. It's just very different. And it's something that if you participate in, you will be able to participate in your using exercises longer, your running exercises, your cycling, your swimming, your sports, your, winter sport, whatever you enjoy doing. So let's dive into these rebuilding type exercises.
Yeah, definitely. So to kind of bring it back to the question of, do you really have to do weight training for your legs if you're doing running or cycling? Our answer is yes, absolutely you have to, because weight training, depending on how it's done, is more towards that building and rebuilding side of the exercise continuum, where oftentimes running and cycling tends to be towards the using side of the continuum. So if you want to extend your longevity from a running perspective and a cycling perspective, then doing weight training in the manner that we're going to teach you how to do is absolutely critical. And so if you want to keep running, if you want to keep cycling, please absolutely keep doing that. That's an awesome form of challenging your body. But when it comes to making sure you can keep doing it, you have to add in the weights. Here's why. So the first thing that we want to acknowledge when it comes to weight training is that it's not just about lifting the weights. It's about strategically challenging your body. And this is a big mindset shift for people. A lot of times when you see people at the gym lifting weights, that's exactly what they're doing. They are lifting the weight and setting it back down. They're lifting the weight and setting it back down. And so the first shift that has to take place is thinking of, instead of weightlifting rather, you have to think of it as a challenge to your body. You have to think of it as a specific challenge to a specific group of muscles around specific joints. Not to get too scientific with the whole thing, but you really have to start seeing it that way, because if you just keep seeing it as lifting the weight and setting it back down, well then the goal becomes lifting the weight and setting it back down, regardless of what the challenge to your body was. And when we're talking about doing exercise that builds or rebuilds your body, it has to be about the specific challenge to the body, not the external task that's being performed.
And unfortunately, this way that we're taught to work in the gym, which is lift weight, put it back down, get a number done, is actually would put that weight training, that activity, into the using it category. So it's like you're doing a whole bunch more using, which again isn't hitting our goal of getting the rebuilding stuff. So that's why it's so important that you're thinking about, I'm strategically challenging the body so that I can rebuild and or build this tissue. The next benefit of weight training to build your body is that you're going to be applying a challenge to a larger range of motion. If you think about the activity you enjoy, and today, again, we're talking about jogging or running and cycling, think about what your legs are doing when you run and cycle. It's pretty much doing a whole bunch of the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. You're probably doing way more than 1,000 reps each time you're doing it. And it's the same motion and it's the same amount of motion. And there are small differences, right? Like if you go from a jog to a run to a sprint, but those motions are very, very similar to each other. When you weight train, what happens is that we're moving through a much larger range of motion for each and every joint of the lower body or the area of the body that you're working. And what this does is it allows muscles to again be strategically challenged in all the range of motions that area can handle and or has the opportunity to become stronger. And what this does is that it allows the muscles to continue to support the joints in as big of ranges as possible. And this will really, really help decrease you losing range of motion. Because have you ever heard of that thing? If you don't use it, you'll lose it. Yeah, so range of motion is one of those. So it's really nice to be making sure that on a regular basis you are challenging not only the range that you hit when you cycle or run, but you do the range that that joint can do and handle.
Now, the third reason why we recommend that you have to be weight training, even if you're doing cycling and running for your legs, is that it is going to afford you the opportunity to create a strategic increase in your challenge over time. Okay, think about how you increase a challenge when you're running. You either run farther or you try to run faster. And from a joint perspective, what's happening there? Well, if you're running farther, that just means that your joints are extending the pounding for a longer period of time, okay? If you're running faster, same distance, faster, you're at the same body weight, what does that mean? That means you have to kind of exert more force with every single step, which means, again, more pounding on your joints with every single step for that same amount of time. Either way, your two options for increasing the challenge while you're running, run farther and run faster, both of which increase the pounding on your joints, okay? So the question is, if we're talking about, again, longevity when it comes to exercising or being able to do an exercise for an extended period of your life, well, then we need to make sure that those joints stay healthy. And how are the joints going to stay healthy? By making sure that the muscles that are supposed to be supporting the joints stay healthy. And when it comes to improving the health and function of the muscular system, weight training is by far, hands down, you're not going to find a better thing than that. And the great thing about weight training is you get to incrementally increase the challenge over time to the muscular system to make sure that its health and function stays high.
The last thing that weight training is going to do, especially when you're keeping this building/improvement mindset, is that understanding that when you build muscle, not only amount but function, you also are decreasing your risk for injury. And I don't know about you, but what is the first thing that you think of when you think of the thing that takes you away from doing activities you like? Because you're injured. Yeah, so using weight training to build your body will allow you to keep doing the activity you enjoy, which is cycling and running, for longer, because you're actively building the muscles that are supposed to support the joints that will allow you to keep cycling and running.
So if you're sitting there listening and you're thinking, okay, all right, I'm kind of on board with this weight training thing. Maybe I should do more for my legs and just cycle and run. But, you're telling me that everything that I've seen from a weight training standpoint is wrong, meaning when I go to the gym and I watch other people do it, well, they're not doing it in the way you recommend. Well, how in the heck do you recommend doing weight training? Well, let's get into that, okay? First and foremost, the biggest thing that we recommend you doing is you have to lift slowly, all right? Lift slowly. Be the slowest person in the gym while you are lifting the weights. Why? Because it is going to ensure that you're controlling the weight throughout the entire amount of motion that you're using. It's going to allow you to focus on what's happening within your body, which is going to enable you to detect if there's an error going on within your body sooner. What does that mean? Like if you're doing an exercise and it feels kind of not okay on one of your joints, you're going to be able to figure that out a lot sooner if you're moving slowly than if you're moving fast. All right. So from a building and rebuilding standpoint, the lifting slowly is vital to make sure that your body stays tuned up, stays healthy, and that you're able to keep running.
You also want to be lifting in a full symptom-free range of motion. So here's an example. When you're doing knee extension, or those ones where you're sitting there and you're trying to straighten out your knee, you want to be doing the full range of motion that you can without a symptom. What this will allow for is for you to be strengthening your muscles in all of its available ranges. So a symptom is your body telling you where to not go. So we want you to avoid that, because the more that you're listening to your body, the more that your body will allow you to build. So here's an example. I have a couple clients that when they do knee extension, at the very, very top, when their knees are almost all the way straight, they get a little twinge and it doesn't feel so hot. So what we do is we do the whole range of motion and just leave out the very, very top inch. And what this allows is that the muscles and the joints can still get strong, but we're not going to be irritating anything that their body is saying, don't do this. What's really cool, and what we see quite a bit, is often when we strategically avoid a specific spot, just like I did an example, we strategically avoid the very top inch of a knee extension, the body will sometimes be able to later give you that range and not be symptomatic in that range. And that's really cool. But what we never see is that when you feel like, oh, it's symptomatic, that top inch, I just push it, and you go ahead and do that, then that's when you get the flare up, and then that's when you get injured, or you feel like you've now hurt yourself, or the body will actually start giving you less range. So next time you come back to it, you'll notice, ooh, the top 2 inches now don't feel so hot. So the more that we're respectful of the body, the more that the body will give us. So always be respectful of your full symptom-free range of motion and work that range.
Now, our third piece of advice is to make sure that you are selecting exercises to create kind of a well-rounded exercise challenge. What do we mean by this? We want all of the joints of the lower body, or at least all of the major joints, I'll say, of the lower body challenged. So we want your hips challenged. We want your knees challenged. We want your ankles challenged, okay? Challenging all the little joints of the feet gets a little bit tough. So let's just say hips, knees, and ankles. But in addition to that, we want them challenged through various planes of motion. Now, some of those joints don't move in a whole bunch of planes of motion, but your hips do, okay? We want you challenging your hips front to back. We want you challenging your hips side to side. And if you can figure out a way to challenge your hips with some kind of twisting or turning, awesome. Your knees front to back and a little bit twisting or turning if possible. And that ankle, that's really going to be kind of up and down as well. Not much side to side with that one. But here's the thing. So often when we think of lower body exercises, we go to like squats, deadlifts, all right? Maybe we might throw in knee extensions and knee flexion, all right?
And lunges.
And lunges, yeah, let's not forget the lunges, okay? But rarely do we ever think of challenging the lower body in kind of this side-to-side motion, okay? Almost like a defensive shuffle if you're a basketball player, all right? But there are some machines that are specifically designed to help with that, like this hip abduction machine where you're pushing the legs apart, and hip adduction machine where you're pushing the legs together, okay? And those help to strengthen the inside of the hips and the outside of the hips to make sure that your lower body is supported fully all the way around with all the hip muscles involved. And this is a really big thing, again, to ensure that the health and longevity of your body from an exercise perspective stays intact, and you can keep doing the things you want to do for as long as you want to do them.
The last tip we have is that when you're weight training, you need to be thinking about the muscles that you're squeezing. So a lot of times when we weight train, we think about getting it done, or we're focused on TV or our music, right? So we are suggesting you need to think about the muscle that you're actually trying to challenge. So when you're doing a leg press, you're thinking about squeezing your buns, if that's your focus, or squeezing your quads, if that's your focus. Or when you're doing a knee flexion exercise, you're thinking about working your hamstrings and feeling your hamstrings. What this allows to happen is that, again, you're able to listen to your body more and feel when things aren't feeling so hot. But also, the more that you actually take your brain and think about the squeeze, as boring as that might sound, you're actually going to stimulate that tissue even more. And who doesn't like a more efficient workout? So make sure that when you're weight training, you're not thinking about how many reps you're doing. You're not thinking about the TV or your music. You're thinking about the actual muscle that you're trying to stimulate.
So do you really have to do weight training for your legs if you cycle around a lot? Absolutely. If you want to make sure that you're able to keep running and keep cycling a lot, then doing exercises that build and or rebuild your body is of the utmost importance. And we can't think of a better one from an exercise standpoint than doing consistent resistance and weight training. But how you do it makes all the difference. You need to lift slowly. You need to make sure you're using symptom-free range of motion. You need to do a well-rounded exercise selection for the different joints of your lower body as well as the planes of motion that those joints can move through. And you need to focus on squeezing your muscles while you're doing the exercises. That will help to ensure that your body continues to function well and allows you to do the activities that you enjoy doing most, such as running and cycling.
So I know you guys have been following along with our Schaumburg Health Summit. And if you're not, you guys got to jump on the bandwagon because you are late to the party. But good news, you have less than a week to get your early bird tickets to the 2019 Schaumburg Health Summit that's happening in Schaumburg, Illinois on May 18th, 2019. It's like, come on, Julie. Schaumburg's in the name. Of course it's happening in Schaumburg. Well, duh. Anyways, we have put together such a rock star panel of health professionals from across the field of health. We have nutrition. We have holistic mindset medical people. We have skincare. We have behavioral people. We have stress management. We have exercise. We have, an eye doctor and how your eyes are functioning. We also have a lifestyle coach coming to speak with us. So make sure that you purchase your tickets. This also includes breakfast and lunch, and you are going to love this event. Also, our sponsor lineup is pretty kick booty too. We're going to have some really awesome activities happening, really great companies from in Schaumburg that are going to be showcasing what they're doing. And I don't know about you, but I always struggle to pick out my health people because I like to meet them before I go and book an appointment, right? So this is going to be a great way for not only for you to meet people that maybe you want to work with, but also open your eyeballs to some other cool stuff that's happening in the health field, because Dr. Google is like not great, right? So definitely go to www.schaumburghealthsummit.com and make sure you get your early bird tickets for the event happening May 18th. And this is from 9 a.m. to 2. You're going to want to bring your friends, and Charlie and I will both be there, so make sure you check it out and hope to see you there.
And while you're online, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review, because this allows people who are looking for exercise and health-related information to find our podcast easier. If you found value in this at all, please, it means the world to us when you leave us that rating and review. And while you're doing that, think about who may need to hear this information. Who's an avid runner that you know? Who's an avid cyclist? And they refuse to do weight training because they think that doing the running and doing the cycling is all they need to do for their lower body. Send this podcast over to them so they can hear our viewpoint on why they need to add in weight training. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week. We'll talk with you all next week.